On to the AFC South. We have the Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, and the Houston Texans. Texans making the playoffs last year, actually winning a game in the playoffs and advancing to the divisional round where they were defeated by the Patriots. And they did beat the Raiders there, which not a lot of people actually expected, even without Derek Carr getting hurt. So, let's start off with the Indianapolis Colts. They're always, man, they're an enigma. They're an interesting team because they've been good, they've been bad with Andrew Luck. And a lot of it's been on the shoulders of Andrew Luck, but how much can Andrew Luck carry, especially with those shoulders and that body deteriorating before our eyes? I mean, he's injured right now. Apparently, he's going to be starting week 1. That's the hope in Indy. But even with him starting and even with him, and I'm really high on Andrew Luck. I've always loved Andrew Luck. I think he's one of the best top 5 quarterbacks in the league. But he's got nothing, man. I mean, this offensive line is sure maybe a little improved from its days of a couple years ago where it was complete, utter trash.
Now it's just trash.
Is about 107 years old, I think, at this point.
I think we could probably all agree that I don't think we've seen a team waste a guy's career than Andrew Luck.
Yes, for sure.
He is a great quarterback.
I will say this in the positive side. Their GM, they have a new GM. They have a new kind of foundation now. So, and I like what he's been doing. Like the draft, I thought was really good for them with Malik Hooker and all that stuff. The offense, like T.Y. Hilton's a great player, doesn't get enough credit, actually led the NFL in receiving yards. I think it's because he's short. I think that's what it is. People don't think he's that good. Tight end position is Jack Doyle is kind of sneaky fantasy guy. Just throwing that out there for you. Other receivers, Dante Moncrief never stay on the field, but he's a pretty talented guy. Dorsett was the worst pick I've ever seen, considering they offensive line, running back, defense, corner, defensive lineman, everything except for receiver, and they picked that receiver.
Makes so much sense, man.
Defensively, I don't think anyone here could name 5 starters. I don't know who the hell is on this defense.
Okay. So we got Malik Hooker.
He doesn't start though.
Well, he will. But
I'm just saying right now.
Defense, I was doing that ranking defense video, man. I looked at this depth chart. I was like, who in the hell is starting on this? The random guys. I think they lost. He was really good last year. Eric Walden was actually really good for them last year, and he was maybe their best defensive player, and he's not even on their team this year. I think Malik Hooker in his first season will be the best defensive player on their team. Their defense is one of the 3 worst defenses in the league. They have no real pass rush. They did sign Jabal Sheard, who I think will help.
Holy shit.
Their corner, Vontae Davis, is good, but he's no longer great. This team's just not good. They'll score points because of Andrew Luck, and when he's on the field, they'll probably win some games just by him doing it, like Matthew Stafford-ish for the Lions. But I can't see this team being any good. I can't see this team going to the playoffs. They need a lot of pieces. I have them at 6-10. That's with Andrew Luck playing probably most of the games. So, how do you guys feel about the Colts this year?
Holy shit! I'm looking at this defense.
I told you, man. Who the hell are these guys?
Henry Anderson, John Simmons, Edwin Jackson. What the fuck is? Okay, anyways, this is awful. I'm going 7-9. I actually had them a little bit higher beforehand, and then I looked at the schedule again, and I was like, man, are they really going to win these critical games? I mean, okay, they got a couple of easy games to start. I think they'll actually go 3-0. I think they'll beat the Bengals. I think they'll beat the Rams. I think they'll beat the Cardinals. Afterwards, it's very sketch as to which games that they're going to win and what they're not going to win. And that defense is awful. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Andrew Luck, the guy's got so much talent. It's impossible not to see it, especially after the guy that got drafted after him has done nothing after his rookie season. But it's disappointing to see, and especially with this division where there's 2 really good teams that are going to be dominating the rest of the season. Well, one really good defense. I have them just at 7-9, just because I don't think they're going to be able to sustain anything of note. Hopefully that they're going to get better in the future with their defense with this new changing of the guard, like Mitch said. But I don't see them winning very many clutch games, and I think they're going to be very disappointing again, especially with no names that I just mentioned on defense. 7-9.
Yeah, I have them at 7-9 as well. Yeah, their defense is tough, but I'd be surprised to see because, like we said, we don't know these guys because I don't think they've been playing much. So,
yeah,
we'll have to wait and see because if we can't say who these guys are, it might not be because we haven't seen them play. We haven't. Like, we just don't even know. They haven't even played enough to give any criticism yet. But Jabal Sheard, I think, is going to be I think Jabal Sheard can do what Walden did.
Yeah.
To Quincy Wilson, who was supposed to be a first-round pick, but some personality stuff or some off-field stuff dropped him down from Florida. He was on the other side of Tease Tabor last year. That was a good pick for them, I think he can start along with Hooker, obviously later in the season or hopefully early. When you look at Andrew Luck, it's like he's actually always had some receiving targets, but they've never given him even a run game. Like watching Frank Gore run since he's been on the Colts is like watching paint dry. It's like 2 yards every time. And they just keep on handing the ball to him and they keep on getting stopped every time. It's pretty tough to watch. I would like to see what actually Marlon Mack can do out of South Florida. I think he was picked up in the 4th round. He was kind of that second tier, third tier running back group in the draft.
He's kind of a receiver more than anything.
Yeah, but obviously played running back in college. But yeah, I'd like to see what happens. But that's the thing is, even with his receiving abilities, like they've never really had that, like Dominique Rhodes. Like Robert Turbin is not a receiver. Frank Gore is not a receiving running back, right? I think they might need to do that a bit more in order to succeed. But I'll go 7. Actually, I'm going to go 8-8 because I still think there is some potential with Luck because, he is the best quarterback in that division by a long shot. I think Mariota maybe is closer than you might think, but I'd still think like Luck by a long shot is the best quarterback in that division.
Just to point out some of Frank Gore's stats, surprisingly enough, he got over 1,000 yards rushing last year, which is amazing. But
he always ends up somehow as a running back 2 on your fantasy team.
But his longest rush last year was 22 yards. 20 yards, baby.
Hopefully he gets another 1,000-yard season because I think that would be like one of the records. Like I think he would have 13,000 yards.
What did he average though?
He averaged 3.9 yards per carry.
That's not bad.
Which is just terrible.
Not good.
I've always said all you have to do is average 3.3 yards and you got a first down every time.
The only season that he got over 5 yards a carry was 2006.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, Kev.
Frank Gore used to be really good though. Go ahead.
He used to be.
I have the Colts at 6-10. They have a schedule to say the least. Andrew Luck is a top 5 quarterback in this league. It's very unfortunate that he's playing on a team that traded a first-round draft pick for Trent Richardson, drafted a guy from Warren Border, Philip Dorsett. When Ryan Grigson was in charge of this team, there was no Pro Bowlers other than Andrew Luck from their draft. This team is a mess, but they have Andrew Luck, and I think maybe a question that only I would ask, because I'm dumb enough to ask this question, is do you look at trading Andrew Luck?
That's a dumb question.
No.
If this team is as bad around to get some draft picks.
But Kev, I will say this.
The Steelers.
Kev, I will say this. Like,
if you're Pittsburgh, would you not ask?
Oh, you would love it. Yeah. I just don't see them.
I think first, the contract is almost unmovable with the way it's made. The second thing is quarterbacks like Andrew Luck, like we've seen with Aaron Rodgers, you give him a little bit more talent and this team instantly 11-5, 12-4. Like you just give them like a little bit like more. Like Aaron Rodgers, without Aaron Rodgers, the Packers would be like 5-11, right? Or like without Matt Stafford, the Lions would be like 3-13. Like, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, and how much has to do with free agents not going? Because I think they have the cap space, but like how much is it with ownership? Guys just not wanting to play with that owner, because you would think that would be a big draw, but they've never really even gone after some big free agents, right?
Yeah, in the Peyton era, they really didn't get a lot of agents, did they?
Well, I look at some of those big free agents like Tony Jefferson. Like, why not throw money at Tony Jefferson to come and get like a mainstay veteran safety in this league, or go try to get Bouye from the Texans. Like throw money around, because what do you have left? You only have.
Well, they did do that a couple years ago on offense, but it was like a bunch of old guys. Like they tried to take their retirement home, like Andre Johnson and stuff. Like on his last.
Yes, that's it.
What was. And with the Colts, like the Colts, even back, they did everything in the draft. Like you're right, Peyton had they never fixed their defense. Really, their defense just gradually got better. Like, and then for the couple of years that they were really good, they won the Super Bowl in one of those years. Their offense, like they were just getting like great draft picks. Like I don't know where they got these players. Like, but yeah, it's.
During the Luck era, they also drafted the guy from Germany, Benyor Werner, to be a D end in the first round.
Yeah.
Like they tried, like, you know what I mean? But they just like totally missed. They've tried to like get a guy that they think. And like if you go back to that draft, they missed on some guys that would be players right now.
And what's their cap space like? Does anyone know?
I think it's pretty tight, just because if you think TY and Luck.
I think it's in the top 5 like tightest cap spaces. I think. I'm not 100% sure on that.
I don't know how with that no-name defense.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to the next team, Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team that I can say has a name defense. They have a bunch of names on defense. The defensive line, they have Malik Jackson, who was signed last year. They signed Calais Campbell this year, which nobody really talks about that signing. Yeah. But Calais Campbell is awesome. Defensive end, hopefully Fowler is not an idiot and plays actually decent. Then linebacking-wise, they might have one of the best linebacking cores in the league. Puzlesny's still a good player. Talvin Smith is a really, really underrated player. And then they also have Miles Jack. Safety-wise, another really good safety tandem. Gibson's there from the Browns, and Barry Church from the Cowboys, who's been solid for the Cowboys for years. Then they got the cornerback position, which could be the best tandem in the league that no one's talking about. I think Jalen Ramsey at the end of this year could be the best corner in the NFL. Like I'm gonna say that he is amazing. I know he talks like an idiot, but he is really, really good at football. And AJ Bouye is really, really good too. This defense is gonna win them games, no matter who's at quarterback, no matter if it's forward pass, Blake Bortles, or if it's Chad Henne, still in the NFL for what reason, but I don't know. Offensively, Allen Robinson, poor guy. I mean, just throw it in bounds, like seriously. Allen Hurns and Marquise Lee aren't bad at receiver. Tight end, they got rid of Julius Thomas because they figured that Blake Bortles doesn't throw to him anyways. Offensive line is pretty bad. They don't really have like any tackles to protect the quarterback. From the camp notes that I saw from when the Patriots played them, the Patriots DNs were like turning them sideways and like back, like just destroying them.
Good news for them. Good news.
Running back Fournette is a beast, and he looks like a beast so far. I think he'll have a pretty good rookie season. I was really high on him in the draft, but I just don't know how successful you're going to be when your quarterback is god-awful and your offensive line is terrible too. So it's going to be interesting to see what Fournette does. Chris Ivory is actually pretty good too. So this is a team with some talent, but their quarterback is keeping them all the way back. This team could be a playoff team. Put Andrew Luck on this team. This team's a contender. not just a playoff team, but maybe a contender. So this is a team that just because they're quarterback, I have them coming in at 5-11 because Blake Bortles, I think, is the worst quarterback to start 3 seasons in the history of the NFL, probably. And Brad Henne is no good either. So
we're gonna go even worse. 2-14. This quarterback takes them all the way down to 2-14. I really like that defense, man. It is solid. AJ Bouye is great. I love what he does. Jalen Ramsey, Bouye. He's a boy. Freaking Jalen Ramsey's great. Cowboys had a chance to pick him up, but we got Elliott. I really like what I saw out of him. Barry Church, I'm very familiar with because I've seen him out in Dallas. He's always been very solid, helping our team out, especially with the terrible defense that we have. Malik Jackson's great. And then you go onto the offensive side. You got Allen Robinson, who I think is a great receiver. Marquise Lee hasn't really picked it up, but could be a decent receiver on most teams. Allen Hurns, also very good. Leonard Fournette, who I put in the Offensive Rookies of the Year candidates. Go check that video out. But, my God, Blake Bortles is fucking garbage. This man, no, that's an insult to garbage too. This guy is just terrible. He's had at least 3 instances where he's thrown a football off a guy's foot and it went into an interception. He's thrown more touchdowns to other teams than he has for his own team in 3 seasons. Fuck off, Blake Bortles. I'm going to make a video on this because I think he's just the worst quarterback almost ever. And he's still starting. Like, I hope they finally get their head out of their asses and figure out, hey, next season when the draft class comes in and there's some pretty decent quarterbacks coming into play, that we go draft somebody because this guy's a bust. I didn't have much potential.
You know what's funny is they could have drafted Patrick Mahomes this year.
Exactly.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they had a chance to get any one of those guys after the. Yeah. And
freaking, it just baffles my mind how they don't understand the concept of, hey, this guy's a lost cause. The other 2 quarterbacks that were in that draft, Manziel has faded out as well, but Teddy Bridgewater, if he's ever going to be healthy again, is a way better quarterback option. This is just a terrible team and a terrible quarterback with a really good team around him. Still 2-14 just because of how bad he is.
And I want to add something. I think Doug Marrone will improve this team a little bit. I think he wants to get to like the run game, run the football, be balanced, and then defensively, I think he'll bring a physicality to the team and kind of. I think he'll straighten out some of those players that have kind of off the field issues. And then Coughlin being there too, I think has a big impact on this team as well.
Yeah, I'll go 4-12. I think they're setting up. I think the defense is going to be good, but I just don't know if we're going to see this right away. I think it might take a year to mesh. And, when they're playing their ass off and then they see who's playing quarterback, I think that's going to hurt them as well, just confidence-wise. You could have the best defense. Like even Houston, their defense always steps up. But in the back of your heads, I think there was a couple times where the Houston defense was just like, what's going on? How are we even in the playoffs? Like, how do we even win games? And Houston's defense won it a lot too with like defensive touchdowns, getting points off the defense. Like that's what you need to do. I could see them going, like, obviously I don't think they'll win because of quarterback, but I think they've built this defense enough and they have a couple good pieces offensively that if they do go to that 4-12 and they get a top 10 pick, that they could get a QB. And if it's the right rookie QB, I think they could be in the playoffs next year because of this division. Because depending on what Houston does, they're going to stay. The Titans are getting better. Colts are going downhill. They might be able to move up next year. But I kind of look at this too, like Atlanta. Like Atlanta started building their defense before they drafted Vic. And I think a perfect place. It's not really a Coughlin guy, but I think Jackson would look awesome in the Jaguars. Like that would be a hype team with L. Jackson there from Louisville at the helm. But that's next year.
Yeah.
But I could see them getting an exciting quarterback like that instead of more of a pocket because they have that with Bortles. I want to see Jackson as a Jaguar.
They also have issues filling the stadium, so that could be good.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of the best thing we've seen since Mike Vick athletically at the QB position.
I would agree with that.
RG3, maybe.
Yeah, RG3, yeah. No, true. And actually, the thing is, RG3, yeah, as a rookie and second-year player was great. So I think Jags are close, but with those quarterbacks, they're not close.
Here's the problem with the Jacksonville Jaguars is they play a lot in London, which I feel like takes away 2 wins from them automatically. They'll do 2 or 3 games in London.
It's tough. I think they have at least one.
Yeah.
I gotta check the schedule. Let's find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's tough because there's so much travel.
They play in Jacksonville, which is like it's like playing at church. It's just or a CFL college game. Unfortunately, it's just nobody goes. There's a lot of talent there. I think for me, this team needs to get out of Jacksonville to be really successful and be a legitimate contending team. That's what I think. I have them at 5-11. I'll throw a quarterback name at you for next year, Tyrod Taylor. Doug Marrone was the coach for him last year. This guy has some talent. That's a guy I could see that would fit very well in Jacksonville. So I'll throw the name Tyrod Taylor in there. But this team, if this team was playing anywhere else other than Jacksonville, would legitimately be a contender for the playoffs this year. But in London, they don't have any atmosphere in their own hometown. It's not a football town, and I think those things play into it, and that's why I have them at 5-11.
And the Houston Texans. The Texans were the team that represented this division in the playoffs last year. Made it to the divisional round, as I stated, and they lost, but they were competitive. And a lot of people have said that they were maybe even the most competitive team outside of Atlanta against New England in the playoffs. They were more competitive than the Steelers, to be honest with you. And that defense gave them a fight. And they didn't even have J.J. Watt, arguably one of the best defensive players of all time. 3-time player of the year is back for Houston. Looks healthy, looks ready to go. And in his place, another defensive player of the year candidate rose up. Jadeveon Clowney, I think, top 10 at least, defensive talent. He's unreal against the run, great in passing as well. And I think that their defense is going to carry them to a lot of wins this year. They have a really good defense. They did lose their best corner, but I don't think that their secondary is going to be too much of a concern. I actually am a fan of, a couple of their players in their secondary. It's not a sexy secondary, but their defensive line and their pass rushing capabilities is just out of this world good. Like, you have 3 guys that are unreal at rushing the passer. J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, and then you have Whitney Merciless, who doesn't get a lot of credit. Their linebacking core is really, really good. Bernard McKinney is another guy that kind of rose up last year that was really good. Brian Cushing is still there. He's good. This defense is really good. I think it's probably the best in the league coming into this next season. They were the best in the league yardage-wise last year. Offensively, the biggest concern is obviously their quarterback, but the other big concern for me is their offensive line. It's not great in the run or the pass game. I think specifically their pass blocking is not the greatest. And as Kev comes back from his washroom break,
Kev.
You editing that out?
No, Kev's coming back from his washroom break. Who's going to start at quarterback? Is it going to be Savage? It's going to be Watson. It looks like it's going to be Savage. And actually what I saw from him in week 2 of the preseason was a lot better than the first week, even though I didn't think the first week was bad. And I just think, like, at this point in time, he's probably got a grasp of the offense a little bit better. He is a better passer than Watson at this point. Watson might have more of the intangibles, more of the running capabilities, more of kind of like the sexiness. And he also maybe has probably the higher ceiling to get the most out of this offense. But Savage, he's shown at least that he is better than Brock Osweiler. That's tough to do, I know.
That's very easy.
And he can at least get the ball to these receivers down the field. DeAndre Hopkins should have a bounce-back season. Hopefully Lamar Miller does the same, but it seems like they have a tandem of running backs that they can really go to. Foreman is good. He had a huge game against the Patriots, even though it was against, like, third stringers. Then you have Lamar Miller. You have Alfred Blue, who's pretty good too. So they have a lot of runners, and they'll be able to run the ball and play some defense. That's always a good sign. Will Fuller is injured right now, but will be back during the middle of the season. They have a couple of guys like Jalen Strong, Braxton Miller. Actually, another guy, what's the guy's name? Ellington. Look out for him. He's pretty good too. Tight end position isn't bad for Derwitz, Griffin. So they have a talented team, specifically on defense. I think that defense is going to be number one again. I think it's going to win them a lot of games, force a lot of turnovers, and get a lot of scores for them too. I think this team is going to be 10-6. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they're going to get into the wild card. I think in the playoffs, they're going to be the team that is going to be more successful than the other team that I think will win the division.
I actually also have them at 10-6. I have the exact same prediction as you because I really like what this defense can do. I mean, you have J.J. Watt coming back. The only guy in NFL history had to have 2 20-sack seasons. Could still do it again. Could break that record. Ridiculous. Brian Cushing, I don't even know how he's still in the NFL, but he's still a good player. He's been in there for like 10 years, it feels like. But Jadeveon Clowney finally figured. I think like Myles Garrett is the new Jadeveon Clowney, and that we always thought like he's lazy. Like there was that kind of consistent thing like he's gonna be lazy, but now he's figured out like, hey, I'm playing for this Houston Texans team that's actually pretty good, and I can make a defense.
A lot of it with Clowney was injuries, I think.
Yeah. That's true. He's had a couple of injuries that are keen to stopping him from being such a force. But with J.J. Watt out last year, he was able to grow and get better and show off more of his strengths, which I thought was good. Whitney Merciless, really like that. Really like him as a player overall. Just that defense is really strong. And I think off the top of my head, it's probably the best defense in the league. I would have to agree with that statement. The quarterback prospect, I like Tom Savage, but he's not this guy's quarterback, or he's not this team's quarterback. It needs to be Deshaun Watson at some point. I think probably towards the middle of the season. We'll see. But I think that'll be the best winning situation for them. Lamar Miller, I think, has always been good. Could be a decent player for them, getting 1,000 yards, and you got Alfred Blue right next to him. Fedorowicz, I always thought was a good tight end. Will Fuller is going to be out, but I really like Braxton Miller as a receiver. He's also that kind of Terrell Pryor mix. He's also been a quarterback, but he can play multiple positions. I think he's also been a really good receiver. And DeAndre Hopkins hopefully comes back after a very mediocre season. That's mostly in large part to how shit Brock Osweiler was. But at the end of the day, I think they're 10. Bro, I'm gonna keep ragging on them. They're 10-6. I think they're a solid team. That will make the wild card. I have a team ahead of them in this division, which will be obviously know who it is. But I think they're very solid. They got a lot of key pieces, especially with the return of J.J. Watt. That's going to make them 10-6.
Yeah, I guess you have to make a prediction now, but I have them at 10-6. But I do have the Titans at 10-6 as well. But right now, I'm giving the Titans. I think they're going to go 1-1 against the Titans, but I think the Titans might have a 1 division win, which I think is the second tiebreaker. If I'm not mistaken, it's the division record.
Yeah.
So they're going to be good. This site has potential. I'm a big fan of Will Fuller. Obviously, we know what Hopkins can do. I think Jalen Strong is underrated for a third receiver. Fedorowicz is solid. Lamar Miller, I think, is going to keep on getting better. That offensive line is worrisome, though. Just even with the first team in the preseason, they've had a tough time protecting Savage at times. But I do like what Savage is doing. He makes those from what I've seen in the first 2 preseason games than Watson. I think that's more just experience. But like when you see some of those throws he was making, I've seen Watson dink and dunk a lot successfully, but I haven't really seen
a lot of the throws down the field that
exactly. That Savage hits.
Savage
has been hitting.
I think that's the difference right now.
Which what you need, right? Because that was the problem too last year with Osweiler. Like he couldn't get those 15-yard throws. He couldn't be accurate on a simple out or a 15-yard in pattern.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because it's going to be difficult if they do not like what they see in Savage to transfer to Watson because Savage is a different type of quarterback. Like Watson could give them the best capability to maximize their run game, in my opinion, and kind of their play action, all that stuff. But like Savage could maximize their passing and down the field throwing and all that stuff. So it's going to be totally different if you have to switch quarterbacks in the middle of the season.
And I just think that obviously Houston, they're going to be one game better than last season, but I still think that secondary still doesn't impress me. What is it? Jonathan? What's his name?
Joseph.
Jonathan Joseph. He's getting up there in age now, and I've never really been a fan of Kevin Johnson. He can play well, but he's kind of been on the fence. And just looking at the depth chart right now, obviously it's early, but I don't even know who these safeties are. Corey Moore and Andre Hall. Did they play last year? I thought it was Eddie Pleasant. Wasn't it Pleasant that started?
Maybe.
But you know what I mean? Those two safeties right now on the updated depth chart, I've never even heard of them. So that could be an issue. But they do have Gilchrist too that they got from Chargers, but he's not a starter right now, but I think he will be the starter when it comes, and I think that helps him out. But yeah, they're gonna be way better offensively. I think Lamar Miller is really underrated, and he showed it last year that he can play. But I'll go 10-6, and I think they lose the division by one division loss or something, but they're tied with Tennessee at the end.
Well, I'm higher on them than you guys, I guess. I have them at 13-3. I have them at
holy shit
in the AFC. I'll talk about the defense first. There is some losses that I think will be impactful. The loss of Simon Bouye. So I don't know if their defense is going to be as good as they were last year, but I think the anchor of Brock Osweiler off this team, their offense will be better. Lamar Williams, Fuller, Hopkins, I think they're going to win a lot more games with their offense than they will with their defense. I think that they're going to come in and make a statement and beat the Patriots in week 3. I think that will say a lot. I hope they don't do that stupid red letter thing that they did that one Monday night. They came in with their.
I won't back you up on them beating the Patriots,
but that's.
I will not back that up either.
But Bill O'Brien is a great coach. He's a really strong coach, and that's why I have him at number 2. I think their defense may take a little bit of a step back, but their offense is going to be a lot better this year. They have a lot of weapons. I do see the concern offensive line, but I think overall I see them. And I think the other thing that you have to look at too with the Texans is AFC West is going to be beating each other up as well.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also going to play a factor. That's why I have the Texans at 13-3 and the number 2 seed playing the Patriots in the AFC Championship.
That's also what I have, actually. Yeah. But I just think they won't be great in the regular season, but I think in the playoffs is a different game. So I think
you see them growing into this.
Yeah, and it depends how Savage, I don't know if it's going to be Watson or Savage at that point, but I just think the Texans, when it comes to the playoffs, when this next team that we're going to talk about, the Titans, I think the Titans are going to be the better regular season team, but I think the Texans are going to be the better playoff team. We'll get into the reasons why. I think we'll probably make another video our full season predictions, playoffs, all that stuff. But Titans, I have them at 11-5, and I have them winning the AFC South. I like what I saw from this team last year. I like that they have an identity, and that identity is exotic smash mouth. It's running the football, and it's finding creative ways to do that with their quarterback and their running back. DeMarco Murray. It was really nice to see him just back in full force last year because I'm a big fan of his. I've always been a big fan of his. I think he's one of those great running backs, very versatile, pass in the run game. Henry's good too, but I just think Murray is just far superior in almost every way. It's not Henry's time yet. I think he's going to, give something here and there, but Murray's just pass catching, running, breaking tackles, running away from people, still very good. Receivers, they upgraded a ton. They upgraded a ton of that position. Looks like Eric Decker is going to be their number 1 receiver, another guy that I've been a fan of. So maybe I'm getting some bias in here, but I've been a fan of DeMarco Murray. I've been a fan of Eric Decker, even though he's been on the Broncos and the Jets, 2 teams that I hate. He's been really, really good, specifically in the red zone where I think that will help Marcus Mariota. Corey Davis, high draft pick. I didn't think he was the best receiver in the draft, but I think that he will at least help probably near the middle to the end of the season because he hasn't really been too much in camp. He's been injured. Kind of takes a while for rookie receivers to come into their own. Then you also have Rashard Matthews, who was the best receiver on the team last year, and a couple other guys like Tajay Sharp and those kind of guys. They have some good depth at that position. Tight end, Mr. Reliable, Delaney Walker, pretty good player there. Offensive line, in my opinion, is the best in the league. Pro Football Focus, or you guys can disagree, but I think it is because I think it's the best at both running and passing because their tackles, I think they have the best tackle tandem in the league, and they're also really good. Their identity is to run the ball. So I feel like that is just the best, most complete offensive line. Marcus Mariota, on his subject, I think he is going to take steps forward, similarly to how we discussed Jameis Winston. I think he'll probably be also in the MVP conversation. He'll probably get some rush touchdowns. I think he'll break out more as a passer this year due to the weapons being on the team. And defensively, this is where I really like the team and where I think they took steps forward. I think they upgraded the secondary, which was a major weakness to this team and keeping them back from not making the playoffs last year. Because remember, this team was 9-7, I think, or something like that. And they added Logan Ryan. They added Adoree Jackson in the draft. They're actually, the pass rushers are pretty good. They have Jarrell Casey. They have Brian Arakpo. They have some good players in the front seven and in the secondary. I think this defense is going to be better than people expect. I think the offense is going to be really good consistently and being tough to stop in both the pass and the run game. And this is a well-balanced team that I have finishing 11-5, first in the AFC South. But I think they're going to be disappointing when it comes to the playoffs just because of young immaturity and that sort of stuff.
I'm going to go a little bold. Again, I'm getting an echo. Why is it me this time? Jeez. Okay, now we're good. 12-4. It might be a little bit out there. I mean, it's only one more game than Mitch, so technically it's not that big. But I really like what I saw out of this team last year. It's one of those teams that I kind of jumped on that bandwagon of like, man, this team's going to go further on. Like Tampa Bay, I was on the hype train for, and we saw it in the predictions video. I was still on them for that. The Raiders, a couple of those teams I was really liking. And Tennessee, I think, is going to be a huge improvement, even from last season when they went 9-7. Mariota, I think, is a really, really good quarterback. It's really one of the most interesting 1-2 selections of Mariota and Winston, with those two guys just doing really good and making their teams a lot better in the process. DeMarco Murray, of course, I have a lot of experience. So does Adam, but in both very different scenarios. He's just a really good guy. I mean, really good player overall. I think he can make some spectacular plays, especially what he did last season. He helps that team a lot in the offensive front. Eric Decker, if he can stay healthy, is a very good receiver choice. Corey Davis, I think, is good, but not great. We'll see. Rashard Matthews is also in the conversation there. Defensively, I think they got a great defense. Sylvester Williams, Derek Morgan. They got Logan Ryan, Jonathan Cyprian. I think there's some good picks, good players there that can make that team a lot better in the process. And with this division, I think Houston's going to give them a run for their money, but I think Tennessee's going to go out there and make a bigger impact in like high-profile games and show the NFL that this season that they're a force to be reckoned with. I don't know they're going to be great in the playoffs. Come playoff time, they're going to have to play a lot of great teams, and they're a very young team. That's the thing here. But I think that they're going to improve and show out to a lot of the teams that are going to say, hey, I don't know if this team's really a contender. So I'm going 12-4. That's just my bold prediction there.
Yeah, no, I got them 10-6. They are going to be tied with Houston, but I think they win one more division game to win that division. Like I said, that Luck's the best quarterback in the division. This is easily the best offense in the division, complete offense, with offensive line, running game, receivers, and also like quarterback play. Their defense has got better. I'm still not sold on what Ryan's going to do. He did get paid, but I have heard negative things.
He's better than Jason McCourty.
Yes, but I have heard negative things so far in the preseason against 1v1s. But like we know, New England's a system. Transfer over to other players and other teams. So I think that could be a problem. Their corners could be a definite problem for me, especially going against T.Y. Hilton, Hopkins, even like Allen Robinson. But I do like their defense. I do like their front seven. Wesley Woodyard is underrated player. Brian Arakpo was better last season. He was decent, but he still is getting older up there. And then my hot take is going to be Adoree Jackson is going to be the best kick returner in the NFL next season for sure, in my opinion.
I have him.
I'll go 10-6 and they win the division.
Oh, sorry.
Kev.
Okay, I have him 11-5. I have him as the number one wild card. I think there's a lot of really good things to like about the Tennessee Titans. I just think that they're a step below overall than the Texans. I think that there'll be a couple of games where we're going to be talking about this year where Mariota needs to grow and win and learn how to win those big games. That's going to be an interesting question. I think, Mariota will be, I think there's going to be a learning curve. And I just think that Houston will beat him twice this year. I think Houston's a bit of the better team. So I have him 11-5, number one wild card, but it's certainly a team on the rise.
Okay, so let's go over our AFC South. I have the Tennessee Titans winning the division at 11-5. The Houston Texans second at 10-6. Third place would go the Colts at 6-10, and last place would be the Jaguars at 5-11.
I have the Tennessee Titans winning the division and getting second in the conference at 12-4. I have the Houston Texans 10-6 and one of the two wild cards. The Indianapolis Colts 7-9 and the Jacksonville Jaguars 2-14.
Go mute.
I think I changed my Jaguars pick, so I can't even remember what I said. But I think I was 4-12.
You were 4-12, I think.
Yeah, 4-12. So I guess we'll start from. I have the Titans winning the division at 10-6, Houston 10-6, Colts 8-8, and Jags 4-12.
And Texans are in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, and Texans are the wild card team. Yes.
I have Texans 13-3, number 2 in the conference. Titans 11-5, Colts 6-10, 5-11 for the Jags. The Titans, the number one wild card team.
Yeah, I have the Texans as the number one wild card team as well.